Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we can start.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So we have discussed up to this point cross-sectional designs, longitudinal designs, exploratory designs, conclusive designs, and we saw that within exploratory, within descriptive, two possibilities are there. We can go for cross-sectional and longitudinal. Then in case of longitudinal, now we'll discuss that what is the difference between true panel design and omnibus panel design. See, just try to connect true to the to this aspect that in case of true panel designs, the subject of interest remains the same. Each time we approach the respondent, the same characteristic is of interest to us. Suppose, imagine that we approach them with the same questionnaire without any change in the questionnaire, and we'll be approaching them with the same questionnaire, maybe something related to the same brands, the same organization regarding which we have some studies being done, and it will continue, say for the next 3 or 4 instances or 5 instances, or for the duration of the study. We will continue with the same characteristic each time. So maybe the brand of interest is the same. And we have a certain questionnaire developed for capturing some responses from those individuals of interest. And what we'll do is that we will approach them, we will request them to provide us responses, and what is expected is that they will give us responses, then we move forward, and maybe 3 months down the line, again we approach the same set of individuals because they are part of my fixed panel, they are part of my panel, they are part of my sample which I have fixed. And what I do is that I after administering will again record the responses, and maybe again 2 months after that I'll approach. But remember, let me repeat that the same questionnaire, the same characteristic is being probed by us. The moment we move to the omnibus panel design, here what happens is that each time we approach, information that we will be generating will be related to a different subject, will be related to something different from what we had collected earlier. So now we move to the comparison between cross-sectional and longitudinal designs, and let us see that what are the advantages and relative advantages and disadvantages. And just after this, I will take questions, and then we will discuss the other types of designs. So very briefly, an attempt has been made to summarize what we have discussed till now. So if you look at the evaluation criteria and from the point of view of detecting change, if you recall, we discussed that if you want to detect change at the aggregate level, cross-sectional designs may be advantageous. But at the level of individual tracking, for example, or you want to detect minor changes, then it will be advisable for us to go for longitudinal design. If you want to generate large volumes of data, if you recall, I discussed that we can take liberties with our panel members. That is, those who are part of my fixed sample, I can approach them with a lengthy questionnaire. And this is what we mean when we say large amount of data can be collected, or collection is possible in this case. Just a moment. Then as far as accuracy is concerned, see, accuracy, we say that longitudinal designs are more accurate and cross-sectional designs are less accurate. Now, why do we say this? See, because if you recall, in one of the slides we were discussing that in case of longitudinal designs, less of reliance is there on memory of the respondent. Why? Because I shared with you a hypothetical example where suppose you are interested in a particular brand, and that brand is an FMCG brand, and something you're trying to probe regarding that brand. So what you can do is, and some questionnaire suppose you have developed so as to probe those issues. So you can give that questionnaire beforehand to your panel members in case of longitudinal study design, and you can request them that as and when you consume or purchase or experience this particular product or service, please respond to this questionnaire. And this questionnaire may be an online questionnaire, maybe hard paper pencil based questionnaire. So what is happening is that as and when the person experiences, immediately after that the person gives you the response. So minimum of reliance will be there on the memory of the respondent. Whereas in case of cross-sectional design, suppose we administer the questionnaire and it is the same questionnaire pertaining to a certain brand, and that brand is of interest to you, and when you are approaching regarding that particular product, suppose it's an FMCG product, the person may have consumed it or may have come across it maybe 2 weeks earlier. So some of the issues which you are trying to probe, the person may not remember. So that is why more of reliance is because of this, memory issues. What happens is that there is less of accuracy in case of cross-sectional designs. It is said that as far as representativeness of the sample is concerned, then the cross-sectional designs are said to be more representative. See that here we have a plus sign here, a positive sign here. So cross-sectional designs, let me repeat, are advantageous from the point of view of representativeness of the sample. And of course, longitudinal designs, they suffer from this limitation. And as far as response bias is concerned, we discussed that in case of longitudinal designs, bias may creep in because somebody has continued with your panel for very long, somebody has been recruited fresh. So all these issues may affect your the observations or whatever feedback is emerging. So it is said that response bias is minimal as far as cross-sectional designs are concerned, or cross-sectional designs are advantageous as far as this particular aspect is concerned. Why? Because positive is indicating advantage, relative advantage, and negative is indicating relative disadvantage. So if you have any questions up to this point, you can unmute yourself and we'll first discuss those issues, whatever problems you are facing, and then I'll move on to the other part.
Yes, what do you mean by way in the SW? I'm audible, sir?
The way. Let me take you there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just let me take you there. The way is the manner in which you will be generating that data. Okay. See, this is what we were discussing, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So sorry. Okay. It has again moved. Now there is somebody, Anas. Yes. So sorry. What is happening? Yes, we were discussing, if you recall, we discussed the manner in which the method. For example, you have to decide that suppose you will be approaching them face to face. You will be administering the questionnaire through, say, by calling them to some kind of location, or you will be approaching them, for example, and having a face-to-face interaction, or for example, it will be telephone-based survey. So the way in which it would be done by you, the manner in which it would be done by you, that is all covered under this.
Okay.
Sir, sorry, I had an issue.
Yes, you're welcome.
Class.
Please be louder.
Sir, I had an issue with the attendance marking for the second class.
You are Yash?
Yes, sir. Yash Goyal, MBA 27.
Yes. So what's the problem?
Sir, I wasn't able to mark the attendance.
Where?
Sir, in the attendance form.
In the second session or the first session?
Second session. First
Second
session I
session.
already marked.
First we have marked. So
Yes,
I think in the second session I had shared with you in the group. I think perhaps the time limit may have been crossed, if I'm right.
Sir, I actually accessed it earlier as well, but it wasn't open due to some network.
Earlier it will not allow. And if you recall, I shared with you that it will be open till 12:20.
Yeah, I know, sir. I actually accessed it before
So-
12:20 as well, but it wasn't able to open due to some network connectivity.
Okay, network connectivity. Fine.
Yeah.
So what you do is that you just drop me a message on the WhatsApp group and I'll see to it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sorry, sir.
Okay, no problem.
It's not about the network connectivity, and earlier the form is not accepting the attendance till 12 o'clock, and I didn't try after.
It is Mohammad Usman. It is Usman, Mohammad Usman.
Sir.
So you encountered some difficulty.
Yes, sir, in filling the attendance form of the second session.
But you were part of the session. You attended the session.
Sir.
Okay. So what you drop me a message, mention the problem which you encountered, drop me a message, and all of you do mention your enrollment numbers and faculty numbers when you send me any message regarding any issue, because see, I am tracking you with your enrollment numbers and faculty numbers more, because sometimes some mistakes are there as far as the names that you provide. Especially when you are typing in the Google Forms and other places. So see to it that you do not forget to mention your enrollment number and faculty number. So just mention, no problem, Usman. I'll see to it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, any questions? See, attendance related issues are not questions. If you have any questions pertaining to what we have discussed, you are welcome. Yes.
So can you just explain the in short about again the longitudinal designs related to the panel?
Okay, I'll explain. No problem.
Sir.
Any other question related to longitudinal designs? Yes, please. Any other confusion, any other clarification that you require regarding longitudinal designs? Okay, I think Yash has asked about longitudinal designs. So let me clarify. See, when we are saying longitudinal designs, first of all, let us try to recall what we have discussed initially. See, in case of longitudinal designs, first of all, remember the sample remains fixed. And how is it fixed? We as researchers have decided that such and such individuals, suppose we are talking of individuals, such and such individuals will be part of the sample, and it is assumed that you have decided upon that sample using some procedure which is scientific, and seeing to it that this fixed sample is representative of the population of interest from the point of view of your study. So suppose you decide in your that your sample would be having, and of course, because in the population of interest, suppose it is pertaining to say a survey regarding that what kind of preferences people are exhibiting regarding a certain product. So in that case, what may happen? You may be interested in engineers, doctors, students, housewives, okay, and different people from different occupational groupings. So you may be interested in capturing something about their gender, you may be interested in capturing something about their income, and so on. So now what you do is that you see to it that the sample should be having people from these various backgrounds, people having the background which is of interest to you from the point of view of the study, from the point of view of your study. Remember that a lot also depends upon the study that is being done. So it is not that you have to ignore that what is the study that you are doing. So you have to appreciate that the group or the panel, the sample that you decide, it has to be done in a scientific manner. You have to see to it. If, for example, probability sampling procedure is not possible, in most of the cases, it is not possible. Let me repeat, it is not possible. Why? Because we do not have an exhaustive list of elements of interest with us, which is referred to as a sample frame. So what we do is that using whatever methods or whatever procedures can be adopted by us, we see to it that the sample that we are going to fix for the purpose of our longitudinal design or longitudinal study, this sample is reflective of what really is happening in the target population, in the population of interest. So first of all, the sample is fixed by us. The second thing is that why do people agree to be part of my panel or part of this fixed sample? Because they expect something in return from the side of the organization or the researcher. Now, what is this something in return? Some of the organizations, to retain you as a panel member, what they do is they even pay you, which is not the right approach, but they pay you. Let us accept reality. They pay you. In certain cases, what is done is that some kind of incentives are provided, some kind of gift coupons are given to the panel members, so as to make them continue in the panel. But I shared with you that the problem that we encounter is that if people are there for the sake of money, then they will, and they are not there for the sake of research or for the love of research, they may be giving you responses so as to make you happy as a researcher. Responses may be inflated, responses may be at times biased, or they may simply give responses because they are getting some money and they want to continue in the panel. So we have to be careful if we are going in for this kind of panel design, that who are the individuals whom we have decided to be part of this group. And remember that issues that we discussed were related to refusal to cooperate, mortality, and payment related issues already have covered. Then we have problems of response bias, people giving answers which they think are right. We don't want right or wrong answers. Whatever is emerging, provided it is a genuine response, is okay with us, is fine as far as my research is concerned. And also always see to it that your questionnaire, be it for cross-sectional design or for longitudinal design, as far as possible, it should be short and sweet questionnaire.
Done, sir. That was the doubt for me.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I hope I have been able to clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other person? I don't know whether the rest of you are there or not.
We are here, sir.
You are very much there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But the subject is kind of new, so we are just,
Please be louder. Uthman, you are saying
Am I
something?
Yes, sir. Am I audible now?
Yes. Yes, now you are audible.
Yes, sir. So I'm saying that yes, we all are here, but as this subject is new to us, so we are just absorbing all the teachings that you are teaching to us.
See, it is new to me also. I am also a student of this subject. Okay, it
Yes.
is as new as it is for you. It's for me also. It's new. Fine, because even after being in touch with this subject and engaging this paper, still I feel fresh every time I go through it. Something new comes up.
Yes, sir. So if we don't have been to ask you some questions or doubt, that it doesn't mean that we don't understand or be there. I'm just clarifying this.
Okay, fine. But I expect, that you should be clarifying issues. If there are any doubts, do not hesitate. I will not move forward because the idea is not to simply cover the syllabus. The idea is to make you understand. Because remember that whatever we are discussing here, remember that this would be of help to you in whichever domain you will be working in, even in your practical lives. Because if you are clear regarding this research design or research methodology paper, even in practical or everyday life, you will understand and you will appreciate that, concepts or things which we are learning here, they may be of help to us there.
Yes,
So
sir.
let us move to, yes.
Sampling, organizing, and associations, research. Too many subjects we are studying at simultaneously.
So,
Sir, but in RMM, I believe.
What? Please.
Sir, in RMM, I believe that we can apply all of this knowledge in the practical world, and it's not too theoretically focused.
See, I think it is Arham.
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, Arham, let me share with you the notes or whatever slides I'm sharing with you. It is not that these slides will differ depending upon the country or depending upon where this particular paper is being discussed. Though as a teacher, I may be good or bad, but as far as the content is concerned, remember that whichever part of the world you go to, you will find that as far as these issues are concerned, these topics which I'm covering, you will find that exactly the same thing would be discussed elsewhere also. Because whatever things I have picked up, they are from one of the best books in the world, and I'll suggest to you that when you want to clarify things, if for example I'm not able to help you out, or if you think that something you want to go deeper into it, you want to study more or read more about it, so go through a book titled Marketing Research and Applied Orientation. I'm repeating, Marketing Research and Applied Orientation. I will type it in the chat box also. So Marketing Research and Applied Orientation by Naresh Malhotra. Fine? By Naresh Malhotra. So in different, the original book is by Naresh Malhotra, and what he has done is that, suppose when the book was introduced in the Indian market, after some time, some co-authors he is now having from India, and some Indian examples have been included in the text. So of course they are of help, but the original text is by Naresh Malhotra, and he's from US, and at least do not get confused from the title of the book, that is Marketing Research. This book, Marketing Research, may be of help and can be definitely of help to even people from HR area, from operations research area, or any other area that they're working. So because the concepts which he has discussed, he has discussed so lucidly, so simply that you will find it very interesting. So I have the core book for me is the book by Naresh Malhotra, because some of you at times asked that which book they should refer to. The core book is by Naresh Malhotra, and after that I have covered several other textbooks. I think more around 8 or 9 other textbooks I refer to. But of course, I will not suggest that you should be going through them because they are not required at your level.
Sir, is this presentation available in the
I've already
section?
See, Aram, I've already shared my presentations as a as a PDF file with all of you. All that I'm discussing here, you will find that it's already there in those slides, which are in as a PDF file. These slides are there in that PDF file. I've already shared with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I found that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm assuming that there are no more queries, so I'll proceed forward. Okay, next we'll discuss the causal research designs. If you recall in the slide on which we had a schematic diagram of different types of research designs. On one side we had exploratory, on the other conclusive. There we saw that in conclusive there were 2 possibilities. One is the descriptive, the other is the causal research designs. So as far as causal designs are concerned, remember that they are based on experimentation. Here what we do is that we are trying to study the nature of association, or we are trying to find out that how exactly they are related, and what we do is we manipulate some of these variables. So in these designs, we may be manipulating these independent variables in some controlled environment. Of course, because if we are not going in for a controlled environment, then we will not be clear what is the manipulation in the independent variables. And then what we do is that we try to study the effect of this manipulation in the independent variables in terms of how things are changing vis-a-vis the dependent variables. Let me simplify. Let's suppose as a marketer, what is of interest to me may be sales of my product, that how many units are being sold. And suppose there is some kind of dip, some kind of decline in my sales. So what I may do is that I'm going for some kind of experimentation, suppose, and what I want to find out that what kind of changes need to be affected by me so that there is a desire. I have the desired outcome, and the desired outcome, of course, would be that more of sales happen, and so that there is improvement as far as my profit is concerned. So, of course, let me say that for the sake of understanding, I'm saying profit because in the current context, profit is not the only thing that is important. You have to look at so many other things from the point of view of your target audience, that whether they are satisfied from the point of view of those issues or not. So just for the sake of understanding, let us say that profit is the sole motive right now as far as this organization is concerned. So suppose as far as a particular product is concerned, suppose it's a package and you realize that maybe the sales are declining because people are having issues as far as your package design or the package itself is concerned. So what you do is that you manipulate, and you do it in a controlled environment. You see to it that suppose you call people to a particular location, and then you ask these people that suppose if some kind of change is affected by me in the design of the package, and suppose I offer you this particular thing in this new package, then what will be a response to it? And people give you some responses to it. Suppose another possibility is that you try to change the price of your offering. Suppose you decrease the price in the hope that it will have a desired effect on your target audience. That is, more of people will be buying your offering. Though, of course, it's not necessary that always a decrease in price will lead to increase in sales. But suppose this is what you experiment with. Now, you can do both the things at the same time. That is, you change the package design and you decrease the price and see the effect of this in terms of the dependent variable. And for you, the dependent variable may be that in terms of sales, what kind of sales are happening, that whether there's a decline or whether there is improvement in that. So what here exactly we are doing is that we are manipulating, we are experimenting, but we have to find out through this experimentation that which combination will work or which may be appropriate from the point of view of my offerings and from the point of view of this particular audience, this particular set of consumers. Because some of the consumers may not be after price, they may be more after service and other related issues. So that's why let me repeat that it's not that decrease in price may always work. So maybe a combination of these changes may be required. That is a number of independent variables you have to play around with, and then you should be expecting that there will be desired outcome. So the effect of this manipulation, whatever you are going for, on one or more independent variables, then we measure it, and then we try to find out that to infer causality. Because let me repeat here that we need to remember that it's not necessary that always decline in certain thing or decrease in certain things. Suppose sometimes it has been noticed that increase in entity increases the price and then tries to convince the target audience that see they have improved the quality, and because of which there is increase in price. Though in reality the increase in quality may not be concomitant to the increase in price, or the extent of increase in quality may not be equivalent to the extent to which the price has been increased by that particular business organization. So the aim of causal research is to find the real link between the two variables. That is there a real link? And the method that we adopt, as I've already shared, is experimentation basically here. So these are generally carried out where we want to basically identify, or we are looking for evidence, and the evidence regarding the cause and effect relationship, that is causal relationship, and that is why we give this name to it, causal research design. So we are after evidence that is regarding the cause and effect relationship, and this gives us this name, that is causal research or causal research designs. One example that we may consider is that you are trying to study the relationship between the HR systems, that is ability, motivation, and opportunity, and so on, and the outcomes, that is employee skills, attitudes, and behavior. So you want to study the causal relationship between these two, that is the HR systems and the outcomes. So this may be carried out as a study, and if you are doing any kind of manipulation here, or if, for example, what you do is that you provide some kind of training to your employees, and then you may be interested in finding out that what is the effect of this training as far as the outcomes are concerned, and if you proceed in this direction, basically you are adopting a design which can be said to be causal research design, because it involves some kind of experimentation on your side. So the causal designs, we can say that they're appropriate when to understand from the point of view of the research, or from the point of view of researcher, that which of the variables that you are grappling with, they are the cause. And when we say cause, basically what we mean is that we are referring to the independent variables, and which variables are the effect, or in other terms, which variable is the dependent variable. And this is in the context of some phenomena that we are investigating. So basically, it can also be used, these designs can also be used to test hypothesis. And please recall, we discussed that hypotheses have been framed by us or crystallized by us during the exploratory research stage. If you recall, this is what we discussed, that hypotheses may have been crystallized by us during the exploratory research stage, and those hypotheses may be tested by us during the conclusive research design stage or conclusive research stage. So we can go for descriptive or we can go for causal. In both the cases, we can test the hypothesis. So here we are testing the hypothesis, and let us recall, what is a hypothesis? Hypothesis is a conjectural statement. It's an imaginary statement regarding the nature of relationship which you are hypothesizing that exists between the variables of interest. So we can have one hypothesis, we can have several hypotheses. So for example, in this case, the hypothesis cited for the purpose of understanding is small companies associated with a larger firm. Small companies associated with a larger firm, of course, through a supplier or customer network or franchising, are likely to have more formalized HRM practices than those companies that lack such association. So hypothesis that we are considering is that even if the organization is small, but if it is associated with a larger organization, for example, there may be certain suppliers who may be associated with Maruti, and because Maruti is a large organization, then we expect those suppliers of Maruti, they too may be having a more formalized HRM setup in comparison to those suppliers who are not associated with huge or large players like Maruti. Or for example, I've taken the case of Maruti, it may be Ford, it may be, for example, Mahindra, it can be other large organization where some smaller entities may be associated, and they may be providing some kind of services, they may be providing some kind of raw material, or for example, some kind of semi-finished, some kind of items to this entity. But the assumption that we are starting with as far as this case is concerned is that small companies associated with larger firms have are more likely to have a formalized HRM setup or practices than those companies that do not have such kind of association. Any questions up to this point? Yes, please. Yes, please. Any question, any confusion up to this point? Okay, what is the relationship between exploratory, descriptive, and causal research? See, a given study or a given project that is being done by or being carried out by an organization, by a researcher, may have or may involve more than one type of designs. It's not necessary that in a study, if we have exploratory, we can't have conclusive in that, or if it is exploratory, we cannot have descriptive in that. Sometimes what we find is that in certain studies, the end result of descriptive study or say maybe a causal research is exploratory study. Why? Because some aspects of your findings are such that they require in-depth probing, and that can happen only in case if you're going for an exploratory design. So a given project may have, or sometimes when you are starting with your research, you have to go in for the exploratory phase, or you need to have an exploratory phase in that. And sometimes, though that particular issue or that those hypothesis may be there with you, but there may be certain aspects which may require probing from your side as a researcher, so as to better understand the issue, and so maybe so as to improve upon the earlier concept, so as to improve upon the earlier suggestions, or to improve upon the earlier questionnaire which may already be existing. So there is every possibility that the beginning of your research may be exploratory research, and then you move on to the descriptive research. So now I've discussed both the possibilities, that the end result of research may be exploratory research, or the beginning of your research may be exploratory research. But let me caution you that if you have hypothesis and which you are directly using for the purpose of empirical testing, and you are not doing any kind of improvement, or for example you're not doing anything to the questionnaire, it is being used in the ready-made format. So and suppose you have not gone in for any kind of in-depth probing, so do not claim that my study is exploratory study. And suppose you have gone in for a representative sample, and you have gone in for a sample which was, say, larger than 50, and you have, say, suppose it was 500 respondents were there. So then if you claim that my study was exploratory study, then it will be a wrong claim, because exploratory studies do not have such large number of respondents. Generally, in case of exploratory studies, the number of respondents is less than 50. Let me repeat, less than 50. And the responses which are emerging in case of exploratory studies, remember, they are qualitative in nature. Always remember that the moment you are generating data which is quantifiable, which for example can be easily converted into numbers, which is you are using a structured questionnaire and where you have MCQ type of questions, so you should not and you cannot claim that your study is exploratory research, because you are starting with a questionnaire which is structured questionnaire, and your responses are in the form of yes or a no or MCQ type of responses. They are not qualitative responses, that they are not in the form of sentences, words, phrases, or paragraphs emerging from the respondent. See, there are certain general guidelines which have been suggested by researchers so as to choose the appropriate design. Let us see what these guidelines are. So when we know little about the problem, go for exploratory research. When we know little about the problem, you should go for exploratory research. So sometimes what is happening is that when we have carried out exploratory research, the natural next step for us is to go for a descriptive design or go for a causal design. So the example is, see, suppose hypothesis which we have developed. If you recall, we have already discussed that we developed the hypothesis during the exploratory stage. So it can be statistically tested during the subsequent stages of research, that is the conclusive research, that is descriptive or causal research. So this is a possibility that Or there is also a possibility that you stop at development of hypothesis. That in your study, what you have done is that you came up with certain ideas, you carried out exploratory study, you crystallized the hypothesis, and then you stop there. You say that future researchers should be empirically testing this hypothesis. That is, you do not proceed beyond exploratory research. Another interesting guideline is that it is not necessary to begin every research with exploratory, as I told you. For example, say employee satisfaction surveys that are being conducted annually. In this case, what's happening is that it is not that we do we go for in-depth probing each time we go in for this kind of survey, but what we do is that survey already we have been doing, and we already have a standardized questionnaire with us, and what we do is that some minor tinkering we may do here and there, but what we do is we keep administering the same more or less the same questionnaire on the respondents, and we keep getting inputs regarding the satisfaction which they're experiencing regarding whatever service or product that they have availed from my side as a business entity, and you carry it out annually. So when we talk of descriptive or causal designs, sometimes, as I told you, results may require, the findings may force you to go in for exploratory design, and there is nothing wrong in it. If that is what is happening, that is, some of the issues require clarification, you go for them. Okay, let me stop here. If there are any questions, if there are any issues.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes, welcome.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, we usually consider a sample size large when it is greater than 30.
Yes.
So in exploratory, you said that it should be less than 50.
Yes, I said that. See, the characteristic of or how we identify whether our study is an exploratory design or not. I said, first of all, what is happening is that samples are non-representative. Okay, samples are, I think it was Umama.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Umama, the samples are supposed to be non-representative. Another thing is the sample size is supposed to be small, and I said small means generally less than 50. Okay, generally less than 50. In certain studies, or rarely, you will find that the sample size in exploratory study would be, say, hovering around 100 or say between 50 and 100. So you are very right that for the purpose of statistical testing, 30 may be that golden figure, but that is from the point of view of statistical testing purposes. That is not from the point of view of the current context. That is, if the sample size is less than more than 30, it would mean that it is large. Okay. Generally, it is said that if it is more than 30, then we can apply statistical tools like at t-test, ANOVA, and all that. And otherwise, yes, we have to go for some. I think you are from, what's your background, Mama?
Some maths and stats.
That is why. That is why. See, you're very right. Generally what happens is, you may already be aware that in case we have sample sizes less than 30, then there are other procedures which are recommended.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other question, please? So let us come back to what we're discussing, and I'll just stop at 2 slides, because the idea is that you should be very clear about them before you proceed further. See, have a look at this. There is some issue in projection, and because of that, cross-sectional design, this link is not shown here. But please assume that there is a link, descriptive research design. Basically, cross-sectional design comes under descriptive research design. I'll see to it what's the technical issue because of which it's not visible to you. So let me repeat that we have discussed various types of research designs. We discussed exploratory, we discussed conclusive. In conclusive, we discussed descriptive and causal. And in causal, what we are doing is we are going in for experimentation. We are trying to study the cause and effect relationships, and the effect is in terms of the dependent variable we try to measure, and the cause is in terms of the independent variable. As far as descriptive research is concerned, we discussed that here 2 possibilities are there. We can go for cross-sectional designs, or we can go for longitudinal. Important thing to remember regarding cross-sectional designs is that this sample in case of cross-sectional design is different each time we administer the questionnaire, whereas in case of longitudinal designs, the sample remains fixed. And it is also referred to as panel, and that is why these types of designs are also referred to as panel designs. So cross-sectional designs, there are 2 possibilities. And another thing that we need to remember is, see, exploratory designs, they are generally the sample on which we are relying, it is non-representative, whereas as far as the conclusive research, in this case, the sample is supposed to be representative. The moment we say representative, we need to understand that it means that we are adopting some kind of scientific procedure to arrive at the sample, and that is probability sampling. When we go for cross-sectional sampling, remember, there are two possibilities. One is we can go for single cross-sectional designs, or we can go for multiple cross-sectional designs. In single cross-sectional designs, here what's happening is, or in general, as far as cross-sectional designs are concerned, remember that it means that we are going in for a snapshot view of things, or slice of time design. Snapshot view means it gives us an idea regarding how things existed at a particular point in time. Nothing it will be telling us what was happening prior to it, what happened after our administration of the questionnaire. As far as longitudinal designs are concerned, here what is happening is the sample remains fixed. So each time we approach them, there is no need for us to draw a fresh sample. Whereas in case of cross-sectional designs, be it single or multiple cross-sectional designs, each time we have to administer the questionnaire, we have to draw a fresh sample. Now, if you compare, now in case of multiple cross-sectional designs, we can draw different samples at different points in time. But remember, here the sample is never fixed. Sample remains fixed only in case of longitudinal designs. As far as true panel, omnibus panel are concerned, in true panel, what's happening is that the subject of interest remains the same. Omnibus panel, the subject of interest varies. Each time we approach the individual or panel which is fixed, or the sample which is fixed, then the subject of interest may be different as far as omnibus panel is concerned. Now let me just share with you one more. Let us revise the advantages and disadvantages of, yes, cross-section and longitudinal. So if you want to detect change, go for longitudinal design. If you have to generate large volumes of data, avoid going for cross-sectional design. Why? Because just imagine that if you have decided on somebody and that person is not being compensated by you, for example, no gift coupon will be given, for example, say money would be given to them. So you should not expect that the person will be giving you responses, and in case of a lengthy questionnaire, or say 10-page or 15-page questionnaire. Even otherwise, I keep repeating that the questionnaire should be very short. So if you want to have more of accuracy, when we say accuracy, always try to remember that we are basically alluding to the memory, that how much of reliance is there on memory. So less of reliance is there on memory in case of longitudinal designs, and more of reliance is there in case of cross-sectional designs. So cross-sectional designs are disadvantages in this respect. As far as representativeness of sampling is concerned, it is said that cross-sectional designs are always advantageous and longitudinal designs are not. And now let me give you an example in this representativeness of sampling. Suppose you are interested in getting feedback regarding the experience of people vis-a-vis service at a particular retail outlet. So the best thing for you to do would be to say stand outside that outlet, or for example, to approach that outlet if the people, if that organization of that outlet is willing to share with you the details of their customers, and you approach those customers so as to get the feedback. And so the feedback would be emerging from the individuals who have experienced the service. Now, if you move to longitudinal design, there is every possibility that not all the members of your panel may have visited that particular retail outlet, and only few of them may have visited. So what will happen is that your sample, that fixed sample, is not representative in this case. Why? Because the picture that is emerging will be very skewed, because only maybe one or two out of a panel of 20 may have visited that outlet, or maybe none of them may have visited that outlet. So you encounter such difficulties as far as longitudinal designs are concerned. So as far as representativeness of sampling is concerned, it is said that cross-sectional designs are advantageous. Response-wise, it is said that cross-sectional designs, are better equipped as far as this aspect is concerned. So less of bias is there in case of cross-sectional, and we experience more of bias as far as longitudinal designs are concerned. So I hope we are through, and if you have any questions, you are welcome, and otherwise we'll break. So before you leave, let me just have a look at the picture. How many of you are there? Yes, any questions are there? Anybody still has any queries? Yes, please. Any questions? You can type in if you want. I'm looking at the chat box also. If there are any questions, you are welcome. Okay, you don't have questions. I have questions. How many of you encountered difficulty in filling up the attendance form? Hello.
Sir, we are having the difficulty in filling the second session attendance form.
So it was it because of the time? That is, you try to provide your attendance or enter the attendance after 12:20, or was it access itself?
I don't know, sir. I tried at 12 p.m. and it's not accepting at that time.
No, 12 p.m. It will not accept because it will open, or the attendance form may have opened at 12:05. It was programmed to open at 12:05 and close at 12:20. The first one was programmed to open at 11:15 up to 11:45. Perhaps that may be the reason.
Yes, sir, maybe.
But anyways, Usman, if you have issues, I think you have already mentioned, and do clearly mention whether you have not been able to mark it in session 1 or session 2, so that I will take care of it accordingly. Any more questions? Yes, please. No more questions are there. So it is 13:10. So let us break. Thank you very much for being here, and we'll meet next time. So tomorrow, I think all of you, let me just remind you that tomorrow the other teachers would be engaging a combined session. So but the day after tomorrow, we'll be meeting again. Thank you very much.